Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Terra Third Thursday. As always, we are going to wait the first couple of minutes just to allow some folks that are having issues logging on to get their computer situations situated. So if you just everyone is going to be on mute for the duration of this presentation, but if you all will just hang tight with us for a little bit and make sure your audio is working, we'll wait for just a couple minutes to let everybody have an opportunity to join us. So welcome again and thank you. We'll be starting very shortly. Okay, if you just joined us, we are just going to be on hold here for just a very few quick minutes to allow those folks that were finishing up phone calls or having difficulty logging in have some time to get their system set up so they can join us today. Welcome to Terra Third Thursdays. We will get started in just about one more minute. Okay, Danielle, you think that's enough time? You ready to get going?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Do it.
Well, again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today on Terra's Third Thursday monthly webinar. We're ready to get started. For those of you that are used to joining this session regularly, you all know that we try to keep these sessions brief, informative, and designed to provide you guys with useful information that you can use to enhance your knowledge, your operations, and your bottom line. We are very pleased for the first time to be having our second time host already. Danielle Spalding with Battery Solutions will be again presenting information about this. The subject this time is about battery safety best practices as it relates to lithium ion and other battery chemistries. So we thank you very much for joining us today. Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. One, I just wanted to make, this is kind of exciting news for Terra. We've been asked to be kind of like an honorary sponsor of the 2022 Electronics Reuse Conference, which is going to be this November, November 13th through the 16th in Denver. So you're probably starting to see some information come out from them. So what's going to happen this year is Terra will be providing a special discount code to all our members. So those that are used to attending that will be able to get a little bit of a break thanks to your Terra membership. And we'll also be hosting a kind of get together and reception while we're there. So an opportunity for our members to finally get a chance to meet face to face in an event sponsored by Terra. Something that's been on our radar screen for a long time. This may not be the first actually, because we're also in discussion with the folks at eScrap to do something similar. And of course their event is in September. So they would precede this by a couple of months, but they're just kind of getting their things started going. So hopefully we'll have more information to share about that. But as now, in Denver at the Reuse Conference, we're going to be there and we're going to be providing discounts to our members. So just getting into it, we've got again 45 minutes today of action-packed information. We keep these things pretty brief. It's about 20-30 minutes of presentation from our presenter, and then we allow some time for some Q&A from you all. And through that, you'll notice on your dash, on your controls, you'll see an area that's related to questions. We also have an area that's polls, a lot of other things that are in there. But you can use the questions, you can use the chat feature, that anytime during the presentation you've got questions, send them through there. I'll be moderating some questions at the end. If things are timely, I'll perhaps maybe interrupt Danielle and ask her a question on something that dial in and drill down on the subject she's talking about. But that's the area where you can get involved and engage with the presentation yourselves. Um, so please, make sure you get an opportunity to do that. And before I introduce for the second time Danielle, just a word about our sponsor, which is Battery Solutions. They serve as an economically conscious. They serve economically conscious corporations, governments, municipalities, and households across the country. They provide cost-effective, fully managed battery recycling kits, systems, and bulk recycling solutions. They accept and recycle all battery chemistries and offer an array of handling services to satisfy customer needs while fully complying with government regulations. So we're very pleased that they've been a member for as long as they have. They're one of our founding members. And again, very pleased for our second time to be having as a host of this session, Danielle Spalding, the VP of Marketing and Digital Engagement. She is a very skilled marketer with over 15 years experience in digital platforms and customer experience. She's worked with large and iconic brands. She elevates the brand experience for customers and their teams. And she bridges the gap of targeted strategy with compelling creative solutions to bring campaigns to life. And she's also extremely knowledgeable about batteries. So we're thankful to have her here. So Danielle, please take it away.
Thank you. That was so nice. One, I didn't know I was going to be, I'm the second time now, like first person that's been on second like 2 times. It feels like a big privilege actually. So
it is. So it's like at some point it's going to be like SNL when we have like 5 total, once you get to,
yeah.
you get to your fifth hosting, we'll have something special for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first, happy Earth Day Eve, everybody. As a reminder, tomorrow, right, is Earth Day, so I'm sure you're all going to be celebrating in your own ways. But what we'll do is go ahead and focus for at least the next little while on really lithium battery safety in your facilities. As Steven mentioned, great news. I'm in marketing, digital engagement communications, not a salesperson, right? So we are going to just smooth sail. It's all about education and information today. If you've got questions, please know, use that chat function. Happy to answer everything we can. And we can connect afterwards also if need be, but really looking forward to an educational session today. One of the things that we often talk about, I think when I first meet people is, what does it mean to truly be in battery recycling? And, this is the one and only overview slide of really a great comprehensive option for battery recycling management and processing. So our team, just for anyone that doesn't know, handles everything from collection, project management. We have a battery-centric logistics team that handles all of our transportation for batteries, as well as being able to sort. We're the largest sorter for post-consumer batteries in North America, which basically just means that if you recycled your probably AA or AAA batteries somewhere, they made their way to us, and we handle those to make sure that they're all sorted properly for their next step in the life cycle. But not only that, we offer everything from testing, second life, to processing, and even that processing aims to then go to cathode, and having that cathode then go into additional battery production or into other industrial applications. So, we know that there are a lot of different pain points right now for different teams, right? It could be the collection, it could be logistics, or it could be just trying to find a very simple solution to be able to handle the batteries at your facility. And so we aim to help support all of that through the battery life cycle. Today, we really want to talk about how and where you're finding these batteries at your facilities, so you can take information away to go ahead and implement, right, potentially even additional safety, compliance, or even a program started at your organization. So, we'll first just mention and talk about the fact that with batteries, we always need to recognize that hazards can occur, right, no matter where the batteries are in the process, right? Whether that happens specifically the fact that when a battery came in, it was misidentified, and it could be a damaged battery. There could be a lack of training that's happened people didn't know that there was a recall of the specific battery that's now come into your facility somehow. Improper storage. We'll talk a lot about storage of batteries, and looking about if it's in the right location. Is there the right protection for the battery? Are they stored in the proper location? Batteries, are just like a lot of other things, with the exception of the fact that with these extreme temperatures, they do have the ability to be much more reactive, right, than obviously a plastics or papers and cardboards. But we have to be thoughtful of that. So making sure batteries are not stored in extreme temperatures is really key. It's shocking, actually, still, on how much we find that people are storing batteries outside in weather, whether that's high temperatures, low temperatures, or just general fluctuation that can occur. And that can really go ahead and affect it. So we'll talk about protecting terminals, which is basically just the contact points of the battery or the ends of the battery, depending on what type and format you're looking at. And then, of course, transporting batteries themselves and accepting material. If we accept material that is not properly packaged, we're bringing something that's potentially more at risk right into our facility, and we just want to know how to handle that. So making sure that we package material properly at the beginning is always key. One thing that we want to do mention, and this is going to be that most people may know, but events with batteries are a reality. And a thermal runaway event or a fire, right, can occur, and whether it's on a small or large scale. So the steps that we're going to talk about today are really help to mitigate that risk for these things to occur, so we can identify. One of the most recent examples of this is back in Morris, right, back in June of last year. You may have seen on the news how a warehouse actually caught on fire, and it was actually storing lithium-ion batteries. And the batteries that caught on fire were all different formats: cell phones, electric vehicles, and more. In this particular instance, you had thousands and thousands of people that were affected, almost 1,000 homes. And, with that fact that residents were not able to actually go back to their homes because of evacuations. They had days that they had to spend away. And this facility was only 70,000 square feet. I'm sure that many people on the call have facilities that are double, triple this size, or smaller. But the key is that there was clearly some improper storage and or responsiveness to an event that was occurring at this location. And unfortunately, it has caused so much damage that there is still litigation currently in the works. But this is why it's critical that when we focus on partnerships and we focus on best practices, understanding and taking the responsible recycling approach is really critical, even in the form of batteries. And so, an example of this is, let's first start looking at lithium battery storage, right? That Morris event was a storage facility. And when we think about a storage facility, there are the standard guidelines that we typically would start with overall, no matter if we're looking at something that's going to be for, 1 million pounds or 5 pounds of batteries themselves. So just a reminder that, the US storage regulations for waste batteries, and your waste batteries or scrap batteries or end-of-life batteries, right? You can pick that terminology, can come from anywhere. And with the wide range of fantastic members we have, you could be an environmental service team, you could be someone that's sorting batteries or processing, or have retailers that are sending you things, or be on the front lines collecting from consumers. But the handlers of waste batteries, you have to be have a designation from the EPA. And so when we think about this, the end-of-life batteries are categorized as HAZ waste in the US CFR, right, the Code of Federal Regulations. But they may be managed as universal waste in most cases. A lot of times we're going to talk about hazardous materials, and we need to understand that there is a difference based on the type of battery that we're handling. They may be categorized differently. So, when you're a generator, you're going to have a federal and state level overall, but that level of regulation will depend on the amount of waste that you actually have. So just like a lot of the other designations that you're probably used to, there's going to be a small versus large quantity. We think about nickel metal hydride, dry NiCad, and alkaline. And again, for anyone that doesn't know batteries, think about a standard household one-time use battery is typically going to be like an alkaline, and that's actually not required to be handled by hazardous waste guidelines. So we have to understand and recognize that, again, different types of battery chemistries are going to be handled differently because of the regulations. So thinking about this, those regulatory requirements, if you're thinking about this need overall, we have got, per RCRA and EPA, again, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, if any batteries, they must be properly labeled. And, especially if what we consider off spec, which could be, again, damaged or defective in some way, or recalled. So, but no matter what, when you're collecting batteries, something has to say used or waste batteries or universal waste batteries. It has to have a clear identifying on the container itself. They cannot be stored on your site for more than 1 year or technically 365 days. And, there are training requirements when you're thinking about preparing shipments and signing the paperwork and loads. And we're not going to go into too much of the training today, as we do have only so much time and we want to be thoughtful. But the 49 CFR, right, 172.co4 does help identify some of those training requirements. And then there's different ones specifically when we think about for lithium transportation and whatnot. But we look at the labels here on the screen and you've got a universal waste, right? And you can talk about those areas. You need an identifier, which looks like a placard right there, which is a class 9, which is a lithium ion battery. And or you need this UN label on the actual unit itself to identify the type of material within the unit. And as I mentioned, right, most batteries right now can't go through can't go on any type of aircraft when they're at end of life typically. So we have to always usually have a cargo only. You can't actually go on passenger aircraft. So these are things that we want to think about when we're actually even just labeling our materials for storage in our facilities, because proper labeling, right, is honestly a big part of ensuring that people understand what these things are and where they are. And when we talk a little bit about where those batteries are, we think about that storage area. And so, and I will say, by the way, this picture, absolutely of our facility. Steve and I were talking before this webinar started, and he asked like where this picture was from, and I go, it's actually in our facility. I could walk you back right now if you want to take a little tour. And batteries are stored in so many different ways. They can be stored in pallets and drums and small containers and cardboard boxes, etc. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but no matter what we're doing, that proper labeling is critical to ensure that you're following regulation. And so, we think about where lithium ion batteries are stored and how they should be used with equipment. The first and foremost is that we need to ensure that wherever your lithium ion batteries are stored, that they are in a proper distance from any material for an emergency response. And anyone that's going to be handling your lithium ion batteries really needs to make sure that there is minimally some sort of fire extinguisher, right, close to that location. And those people are trained on how to use it, because a quick response time and training for any event is honestly will cover you 90% of the time. And it's really important that we focus on training and education for our team at our facilities. Even if you're handling a small amount, we want to make sure that people understand what to do. So when you're storing these batteries, though, just remember, store them in well-ventilated areas. And again, we do not want to have temperature fluctuations a lot, kind of like as we started to mention at the beginning. We need to ensure that this is going to be anywhere from 40 to 80 degrees, so not super cold and not very hot, and we don't want to keep a lot of fluctuation in that range. Do store away from direct sunlight. If you have them by a window, or if you've got sun coming in somewhere, or if they're by an open door often, please remember that that does also count as fluctuation in temperature and can increase if direct sunlight hits those batteries, the temperature inside the container, particularly if it's actually a closed unit. So the temperature inside could increase just simply because of the location of where you put it. Avoid freezing temperatures, of course, but here's what we want to mention. We need to protect those terminals. So when we're talking about protecting terminals, I'm specifically referring to lithium and lithium ion batteries. So when I say lithium, there's also a lithium metal or lithium primary battery, but lithium ion especially too. So we're going to want to make sure that you're taping, right, the two ends or the contact points for where the energy then is dispersed, to ensure that it cannot touch, it can't, graze against or get moved around and accidentally cause a spark in any way, because that can then go ahead and create an actual thermal event. When we talk about where to store, like a physical location in your facility, keep it away from high traffic areas, guys. It is important to remember that when we're actually storing these batteries somewhere, if they can get kicked, or if the forklift, right, may get too close or run into something, we need to ensure that it's not going to be in a way for someone. But at the same time, if there is an event, we want to make sure that it's being kept away from some of the other materials and not in a place where it could harm someone. So when we mix them with other batteries, we try not to do that. Anything that when you're trying to store lithium ion, unless you're using a specific container that has a special permit that allows commingling, which we'll talk about in just a minute, then especially if you're in large volume of this, then your materials should be separated out. Store in areas with, well, it says don't store in areas with wide temperature. I think we try to reinforce that enough now, or in hot areas. So damaged batteries. Well, there's no specific requirement, by the way, for distance of keeping your damaged, defective, or recalled batteries. We want to make sure that we believe at least a good 5 to 10 feet away from other material is typically a good rule of thumb. You want to make sure it's far enough away that it's not going to go ahead and start or propagate, right, another event if something were to occur within that container that you have the battery in, or if the battery is out by itself. So when we think about damaged batteries, we should follow the guidelines in place, but think about ensuring that you have a lined container with an anti-static bag, and ensuring that you're going to go ahead and use something like a cell block, right, which is a fire suppressant material that will then allow you to ensure that if there is any heat, then once it reaches a certain temperature, the material melts to then go ahead and take out all the oxygen and suppress the actual potential for that event to get any larger. When we talk about materials for how to actually, we talk about where to store it, maybe, the do's and don'ts of that location. And then we started to mention a little bit about the actual material, what you stored in, if you will, the container. Now, depending on, right, what you're actually collecting at your location, you may just have a standard dry cell battery kit that you need. And that could be something like the container here. It could be a different type of box. It could be any number of things. But one thing we want to make a mention of is that if you're planning on shipping those to your recycler, right, because you're just doing a small volume collection and want to ship them in that container, you need to make sure that the container has a special permit from the DOT to allow commingling of both dry cell and lithium ion batteries. So you can put, let's say, your standard alkaline one-time use maybe with your rechargeable lithium ion batteries in the same container. There will be requirements. So you're going to have to, again, tape the terminals to the ends of the lithium ion battery. I am sure you have now seen a theme, or heard a theme, I should say, so far. And these types of kits that are available through multiple teams, will allow you to go ahead and collect and then ship in really a turnkey fashion. They come with all the proper labeling. They need to, again, ensure, it's got used waste, universal waste batteries. All of that language needs to be on that. You could think about then if there's a damaged kit. Damaged kits are going to be a bit different than your standard non-damaged batteries in small formats. And that may include something where if it's, which we'll go through next, you're going to need to have anti-static bags, additional labeling on the container itself, some sort of cushioning material for the material or for the batteries. Those batteries are going to need to either be terminally protected with tape, or you can put them in individual bags. They need to be separated out. They should not all be stuffed into one container. And then, we think about transport cases for large format batteries because, we've got a wide range of teams here, right? Teams that are going to handle anything from telecommunication or forklift batteries to those small batteries that you find in the remote control in the conference room, right? For your turning on and off the TV for screen sharing. And we want to make sure that you're always finding the solution, right, that you need. For those that are handling larger format batteries and you want to store them on site in something that is potentially going to have a runaway event, or you just want to ensure that it has a safer distance, then these storage crates, which are much heavier, but they come with a lot of fire protection right within that. They have venting. They also would allow us to go ahead and do it, maybe a TAS evaluation to do the temperature, interior temperature, and then it's read out on a heads-up display that you can then have to just monitor the battery itself in case an event were to occur, and then when you can open it again. Now, there are a wide range of solutions that, I'm sure your team has, or one of your partners can go in and help you make sure that you do have properly for your facility. And again, making sure you keep it away from certain areas. But let's think about damaged lithium for just a second, because sometimes what can happen if we are at collecting a lot of different materials and suddenly a battery got put into the collection that came to our facility. Maybe it's an e-scrap.
Danielle?
Yes.
Before you jump into this real quick, it's just a question on that last slide.
Oh, please.
As much as our members, clients, I'm sure, give them a really good accounting of what they're going to be picking up that day. Assuming for a moment that they probably missed a couple things, what's kind of like the bare minimum here that they really should be almost kind of carrying around with them as an emergency preparation kit to go into a client's area and be like, okay, I can handle what you've thrown at me today?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would say that you need two things. You need to have something for your standard dry cell batteries that are not damaged, right? That just kind of will come in randomly right into your facility. And then you need something for damaged overall. So your dry cell and then a damaged battery kit. A damaged battery kit, the size will depend on what type of formats you typically find at your facility, but one of each of those is going to be really critical. We're also going to show the team a couple of other options here in just a minute too, but always a dry cell, right? Just for anything that's going to come in, and then your damaged battery, because when you have a damaged battery, you need something now. You don't have time to wait, right? You don't have the option like, let's wait a few days and just then call our partner. And no, you have to take care of that battery immediately, because you do not want it to go into an event that can then either harm an employee and or affect other material around you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
question. All right, yeah, no. And I will say it depends on the format again, but I'm happy to answer more of those questions too, because Stephen, you always had good questions. All right, we'll go on to this too, to kind of talk about this, is that, here's an example. If you go ahead and get something damaged in your facility, now, can you see my mouse? I don't know if you can see my mouse on my screen, but if you get a damaged battery in your facility, and look, they can be dented or swollen or have an odor, right? People forget that actually there can be an odor from these things. They can be leaking or have heat that might be actually coming off of them, smoking, even hissing sounds. These are examples that we get, honestly, quite often. But we want to show you, one of this is that this is an event that happened at a facility, and basically the person ended up just like throwing, right, this battery because they got concerned and scared. This is a bloated battery that had come in, and the team just said, like, we have no idea what to do with it. But these are all great examples of damaged batteries, and these are even in racks, right? This middle row are examples of batteries that have been affected in the rack itself from where they're actually being stored and or being used. And when this happens, depending on what could occur, one battery can then affect the entire row, the entire racking system, depending on, again, what's around it. Then down here, what we find is that this is danger, right? With all of these batteries, the way that they're currently just kind of put onto the pallets, because not only is there no terminal protection, but the way that they're stacked and the fact that they are overstacked on this actual pallet. So if you're actually collecting everything from one facility and that customer is sending you something that looks like this, that's an issue, which we'll talk about packaging in just a minute. But the other thing is that this picture right here. So again, just something where someone wasn't sure how to handle battery. They literally went and just took it outside and tried to help take things apart. But what we have to remember is that a battery, when it comes to our facility, can go into a thermal event at any time, and it may have none of these signs. So always treat your batteries, right, in a way that there could be a potential concern, because being safety focused first is really the priority to ensure, again, safety of your facility and your team. So one thing we want to make a mention, and I'm going to go back to Stephen, your question is, what do we need to have? Well, here's another example of something to have as a safety kit, right? Not like just one storage area, but a safety kit at your location. So first off, we actually do, this is actually something from our facility. We have these all over, but this is a designated area away from traffic. It's got a simple ability for us to go ahead and kick something open, and then there is cell block EX that is actually in this particular unit, which is something that helps with fire suppression, but also for cushioning material. And it can go directly into this container if there's even a concern of something. If you had to take some steps to go ahead to safely store a battery if there is a sign of damage, then make sure you put it in the designated area. And again, please have a designated area. We go into a lot of teams that are fantastic people, and even if they're manufacturers, they still don't have a designated area for damaged batteries. So please make sure your team needs to know where to go if something were to occur. Have it clearly outlined, do a couple of practices, right, so they understand where to go. But placed in the container, right, with this fire suppressant material. Vermiculite is often considered as well as another cushioning material. I think that cell block EXs have a bit more of that fire suppression safety factor for sure. But allow it at least 2 to 3 hours before you check the container, because you want to make sure that things have died out. You can continue to check after that as needed, and then we'll talk again about packaging. But if there is any concern about flames or something that's even hotter, just be safe. Evacuate the area, and you can always come back into it and do your standard emergency response procedures. The second is that if the place is designated as we mentioned here, then go ahead, do this, and then follow packaging instructions again. But one thing I want to make a mention is that if these large format batteries, this is another example of another type of case that you can put in if you've got, again, forklift, electric vehicle, those kind of large format batteries. There are cases, if it's, let's say, on the forklift or on a crane or something, you can actually just drop it into these containers. It is closed, and then that's a safe space, right, for that container to be if you're not able to get it outside. And so we want to make sure that we can go ahead and do that.
And that's a good point. I mean, people think a lot of times of the batteries that they're bringing in, not the batteries that they're utilizing on their tow motors and their other equipment internally. There are some potential issues just from the equipment that people are having to do this job every day. So yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what's important is that, everyone's going to have different formats of batteries that they're dealing with. So there are solutions for all of them, right? We just have to think about that plan. And part of the biggest plan that we have is packaging batteries. And whether we're going to be talking about this packaging and the fact of a small or large format, there are guidelines that we really, really suggest to follow. So here are some just very selective, right, examples of packaging instructions. If the packaging instructions you have are not detailed enough, you need to talk to your team, because there needs to be clarity on what needs to be done step by step to ensure that your team is educated enough on how to handle the packaging of these batteries. And so, we think about general instructions. And by the way, yes, I realized there was a couple of headlines that are duplicative. So that was bound to happen, guys. We're recording, so of course it's gonna happen. But the first is really about a small format. And in a small format, this just shows, generally that you can put everything in and then send it back, and then what has to be taped. The second is a damaged, again, kind of small format damaged battery. You can see that you've got to put it into something like an anti-static bag. You don't want to just put it into any old Ziploc container. It needs to be that anti-static bag to ensure that there's no additional spark, right, that could even happen. And then the third one in is the pallet instructions. If you've got a large format type of battery that can not damage, but can then just be sent over to your team that's going to be recycling it for you. Or we used an example of a large format damage, and this is an EV crate, for example, on how things have to be put together, some labeling, etc. Some of these do have multiple pages, but we wanted to give an example of what this could look like. Now, when you think about the common packaging challenges, the first and foremost is that things are not always the right size. And batteries do tend to slip off in transit. They could leak, they could tip over, it's one of those things where these are things that are just a part of anyone that transports any type of material, right? Please make sure you have a proper size and that the container you have is rated properly for the weight. That's like a W sound there. And then that the inner packaging requirements are met. You're going to need to have cushioning material by the DOT, which could be a vermiculite, it could be the cell block EX, it could be any number of materials, but you also might want to have absorbent pads. You might want to have it in an anti-static bag, depending on what it looks like. Terminal protections required for certain things, especially once you get to certain voltages. And then, with DDR, the other thing we want to make a mention of is the packaging group. The packaging group needs to be identified very clearly for you, because that is also part of the regulations. And you will see on all these slides now, they're going to say any detail can definitely lead to fines. And we don't want anyone here. We want to provide as much education as we can. So please make sure to follow those guidelines as you can. Here are some examples. Yeah, these are real examples, guys. But these are drums that literally had come in, and about 30 seconds after they were dropped off, just fell off because the pallet was already warped in the middle. And it was a very poor shrink wrap job around. This had been, was starting to crack, and we didn't want anyone to trip over anything. So someone had literally just placed it away from people, and it just bursted open. Here you can actually see that these are all batteries. All of these there's no cushioning material. There's no safety precaution except for this one who tried to tape every single one together.
Wow.
Not what you do. Here, the terminals, if you can actually see this, the terminals are actually pointing toward each other, not away from each other. So any jolts into that, in that truck, right, could cause that spark to happen. Pallet mishaps are often. An example here, I just wanted to make a mention of, again, if you can see my mouse, which is the colorful one, kind of in the second row, second one in from the left, is that these guys actually were consolidating both wet and dry cell, and that's typically not something you should do. Just because, again, at the events, there's also no taping. There's clearly some lithium batteries in there. Leakage right? And then again over here, just a really poor packaging job.
And
And so,
that one in the bottom right, I'm sure, members have seen that, not
yes,
necessarily in their facilities, but where they're going to pick them up, that they
yes.
thought they were being helpful by doing that. So that's where, they need to be on the lookout to be prepared to rip that apart and pack it properly.
Yeah, I think again, great point, because when you think about this, you can see that battery might be trying to get out right in this bottom corner area, but not only is this poorly wrapped by itself, but the packaging even on the pallet itself is just not put together enough. So properly packaging, right, for batteries is critical for safety and transport and for any team, even if it's coming to your facility or you're helping a team get it to another one. We have to make sure that safety comes first. And I think that that's also where the basics come in. And this will be our wrap up slide here. Hopefully, I think I watched my time. I was like, I'm going to do it, Steve, for you in 30 minutes. But the basics, right? Think about this. Everyone does a fantastic job, I think, especially in the Terra group. But for your customers, reminding them that understanding the basics for any emergency action plan is critical, even for batteries. So who are those contacts, the names, the phone numbers, the evacuation routes, right? And we think about this, where are those containers then stored in your facility? What's stored in it? Does it have to go into something else? Who's your recycler? Who do you have to call if there's an event? What are the numbers that you have to look at? But also, again, keeping your storage of your kits that you need, the dry cell at least, and one for damage, where are those going to be located so your team can get them at any point? So again, just really focusing very heavily into how we can go ahead and help keep everyone safe as we store our lithium batteries at facilities overall. And even if you get just a few, or if you get hundreds or thousands of pounds, these are all the steps that we want to be able to help the teams take and share as much information education that we have learned right with all of you. So that is where we are. Did I do good on time? Did
You did
I?
fantastic on time. We got a couple of minutes, and we can go a couple of minutes over, I think, with maybe some questions here. Because this is a topic that's come through, our Terra listserv recently, and it's just so important. It's so timely because lithium-ion batteries and other batteries, it's exploding.
Mhm.
One of the things that stuck out was, some of those handouts that you were showing a couple of slides back. Are these kind of resources available to the members to be able to, contact you guys, get their hands on them, maybe get some best practice documentation from you all so they can share that and kind of educate their teams?
Absolutely. So as long as no one's judging me, the fact that our headlines are educative, then yes, you could absolutely have the resources. Actually, this is going to sound salesy. It's not meant to, but if you just go to batterysolutions.com and you go under your ability just to do, you can look under documentation and all of the resources are there. So it's for all different types of batteries that you need. There are examples of how to actually package those types of batteries for your facility, whether that is, again, a large, small, or a nickel metal hydride versus lithium versus alkaline.
And does some of that information also include, going back to, the labeling? There's some labeling
Absolutely.
helps with documentation on that too.
Absolutely. So when we think about all of our documentation, again, the ones that were just on screen now were only the first page. And often most of our package instructions are at least 2 pages. And those pages will then show especially the placard example right here. And then it'll include, we will always send materials with universal waste requirements already on the label. And if you're not getting it from us, which is okay, please do make sure that whoever you're working with has that. And then we will ensure that all the proper labeling is included and then tell you how to go ahead and then adhere those labels on the containers if they are not already done for you.
Perfect. Well, excellent. It is now exactly 3:45 Eastern time. So we can close today out. Again, thank you very much, Danielle, for joining us today and for Battery Solutions to be our host. Just want to remind everybody, this network is here for, you're investing in it. Take advantage of it. We've got partners all over the country. We've now grown to 99 facilities in North America, or 98 North America, and one in Great Britain. So, we continue to grow. The capacity is there. Um, Opportunities to build relationships and business partnerships exist. Get involved, call myself, ask questions, reach out to your fellow members, use the listserv, use the resources available to you. You're part. This is we're still at the very beginnings of this, and we're kind of feeling out how things go. But this is an opportunity for you guys to take advantage of a group of people that are very highly intelligent in what they're doing, and especially Danielle. We thank you.
Thank
But
you.
before I let you go, though, there finally here at the 0 hour came in a couple of questions from our members here.
Okay.
Uh, let's see. Do the terminals of the sealed lead acid batteries need taped?
Oh, so we always, I mean, for safety purposes, taping is always better. But I would always recommend that if you're dealing with sealed lead acid batteries, please make sure that you're actually packaging them or palletizing them properly. That is probably the most thing that we find overall.
Okay. Perfect. And this is Paul. You're asking about, can you show the packaging of the batteries again?
Oh,
This
I'm sorry.
video, so this video in its entirety is going to be shared. So we have this is being hosted by GoToMeeting, actually GoToWebinar. So we have our own GoToWebinar channel, and we're going to be putting this material on there. It should be uploaded in about 40 minutes. So you'll be able to share this with other members of your team. You'll be able to rewatch it, pause it, whatever you need to do to be able to kind of, if there's anything you missed or anything you want to hear again, you'll be able to see and hear it again.
Paul, I'm just going to tell Paul, do not judge me if there is something misspelled, okay? We all have a weakness, and mine is going to be spelling, okay? But no, thank you guys so much, and I hope everyone has a fantastic Earth Day tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. Take care, everybody. We'll talk soon. Next third Thursday next month.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.